Hey everyone, Garth Jenson here with Huntin Full, and today I'm going to kind of run through a basic gear dump of what I'm taking on my Alaskan moose hunt. Now, this is a first for me as far as Alaskan moose, but I've been up there and hunted in Alaska half a dozen times. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to run down this gun case, and basically what I've done is I packed this gun case along with other bags of all the items I'm going to be taking, or I should say most of the items I'm going to be taking. Some of the items I've already shipped up there, but we'll start off with this gun case and why I have stuff in there, how much it weighs, things like that, and then we'll get this out of the way and I'll really spread out the big bag. What we have in here is, I got my stitch kit, and basically the main thing in here, gun, rifle, I'll be taking a rifle on this hunt, 40 rounds of ammunition. I have a pistol as well, which that's just for in case I harvest a moose and going back and shuttling meat back and forth. I don't want to have to take my rifle, so I can just take my sidearm with me for bear defense. And basically everything in here, I've shoved enough in here to where that weight comes out to 48, 49 pounds, to where I can still get it in a check bag and not pay overweight fees. But got my trekking poles, tripod, ammo holster there, got my rangefinder, basically stuff that I want to keep protected. Leatherman kind of field care kit for my rifle in case it gets wet, which most likely it will. Rem wipes, things like that, just to keep the rust from getting in there. And again, the reason I don't have my pistol ammo in here for that pistol, because you have to keep pistol ammo separate. Rifle ammo you can keep in the box with your rifle, but pistol ammo you have to keep separate, so that'll be in my check bag that I'm going to go through next. So there's my locks, and I put the locks in here, basically 3. One for here, the end, and right there. And basically the reason for 3, I mean, it's fine with 2, but we have had a TSA agent in the past. We got all the way over there, it was fine going over. We were coming back and they pried this open right here and they said, nope, I can get my hand right there. So we had to go all the way back to town, buy a lock, come back and put it on one of these middle ones. So I always take 3. I put it in there when I'm weighing it, just so everything I know that's going to be in there, that's the weight. So it comes out to be about 47, 48 pounds. So as you can see here, I got everything laid out that came out of this 𝗀𝗂 bag. Now, it weighs about the same as the gun case. I put everything in there, got it to about 47, 48 pounds. And ultimately, I really like to have it just under 50, because potentially by the time I get to the airport, there's gonna be something that I forget and I have to throw in, and I don't want to be right up to 50, and now I'm like, oh crap. Now, I say that, but I have a third bag here that is going to be pretty much a miscellaneous bag for stuff. I'll show you what's in there, but I'm going with a group of 2 others, so there's gonna be 3 of us total. And by the time we get to the airport, I'm sure we're gonna have a few items in this, and we'll just share that cost. At any rate, this is what I'll just kind of go through a quick rundown of what I have. Now, this is an extra Nalgene. I do have a Nalgene on my backpack too. Coffee mug, you gotta have that. These are vitamins. I just put them in this carrying case, makes it handy. Gotta have the pee bottle. That's for the middle of the night, so you don't get out and scratch around with big grizzly bears and things like that. Just rather not. This is my fishing kit. It's got lures, things like that. Like I said, we're gonna be on a lake. It's got my fishing reel, fishing line. So we will have some good time to fish. Camp shoes, gotta have those. Rain gear, that's some katana. Little bit heavier duty than the 𝗀𝗪𝗓, but I feel like up there in the alders and the brush, I'll probably need that. So that's my rain gear. And as you can see on most all of these, I've went and labeled everything that's on them. Now, I know that gets a little busy after you've gone on a few trips, but the one thing that does kind of remain is you start packing for a trip like this, if you don't go through and label this, I mean, I'm leaving in 6 days. If I didn't go through and label everything in here, I'm terrible. I have a terrible memory. So even if I mark it off on a list, I don't know. I might forget. So I like to know exactly what's in all of this outside of this bag, which we'll go through that one. But this one is basically all my gloves, beanies, neck gaiters, things like that. That's what's in that bag. This one, now as I said before, you have to have your pistol ammo in a separate case. There's my pistol ammo. So I have that pistol ammo and it's just in here with my knife, sharpening stone. I got an outdoor edge, some extra blades. Then I got another kind of a utility knife, not utility, but it's got a fork, spoon, and a knife. So that's what's in this bag. And as you can see here, I've got most everything in dry bags just because we are gonna be in Alaska. It's gonna be wet. So I like to keep everything as dry as I can. Basically, these 2 bags are my clothes. This has a lot of my stuff, like my upper layers, my tops, insulating layers, base layers, things like that. This, for most part, is the bottoms. I do have a glassing pad in here, but all of my base layers and pants and things like that, that's in here. Again, I have it marked on each of these what I have in there, so no surprises. I'm like, okay, I know it's in there. Got every moose call. Here's a breakdown fishing pole, little 3-piece guy. Nothing fancy, but it's got me through caribou hunts, so I'm sure it'll do fine up there. This is my top insulating layers. It has the Super Down Pro top and bottom, along with the Kenai top. And basically that Kenai top I'll be wearing most of the time, and just in case I really start to freeze my tail off, I got that Super Down Pro to put on. Here's 10 pairs of socks. And like I say, we're gonna be in there, I mean, we have the potential of being in there over 15 days. So the socks, I figure 10 socks I can make it through. There's a good chance my feet will get wet, but I did have some waders and things that I shipped up there, which I'll go over in a minute. I have my Storm Star tent. That's what I'm taking up there for a tent. You just want a bomb-proof tent. I mean, that's the one thing I would say. That's the only reason I'm going with the Storm Star over the Mountain Star. The Mountain Star would be fine, but this Storm Star tent is just bomb-proof. It's solid, handle heavy winds, snow, rain, you name it. So that's why I'm doing that. Weight's not as much of an issue, so we're gonna take that one in. All right, so before we jump into that, I just realized I didn't touch on this. This is basically my sleeping pad. I have a sleeping pad in there, a liner, and a pillow. So the pillow, must have, absolutely must have. That's what that is, and I don't think I touched on it when I were over there, so that's that. Now, this is basically a bag where I had a bunch of small items, had a big bag, all of this stuff has to go, so I just put it in here. Now, I made a list of everything that went in this bag number 1 that I labeled, and I just put it in there in bag 1. So I know exactly what is in this bag because I don't think I would fill the entire thing if I had to write everything on it. So basically what I got right here, I got all my charge cords for my camera, phone, GPS, Garmin. I also have earbuds, so when I'm sitting up there glassing for moose or in my tent, socked in, I have that so I can listen to some downloaded books or some movies, which is another nice suggestion. Before you go, make sure and download plenty of books and movies, or bring books. They just weigh a little bit more than downloaded books, but carry on. So right here, we brought toilet paper. Gonna need that. I actually have 2 sections of toilet paper. This one's got some wet wipes in it as well. Hopefully that'll tide me over. Water pump, water filter, I guess I should say. Have right here my solar panel. There's the bug repellent. Life straw, that's handy. Throw that in the backpack. Take it with you. There's water everywhere, so if you're sitting there around some water, you can suck it up. It kind of suck like a son of a gun to get it through there, but it works. Dromedary bag, I'll put this, probably hang it in camp. But super, super good item to have in camp. You can just hang it up and then just fill your Nalgene bottle from camp, cook your food, whatever you need. Hilleberg tarp. It's just kind of a tarp. If I'm up there glassing and it starts raining, I can prop that up with a couple trekking poles, sit underneath it to glass. That's been a great item. This is my fire starting kit. And basically it has some pyro putty and some quick fire cubes. And that is for the tent that we're taking, the TP tent. Basically I'll leave this one in camp just to light those fires up at night. We'll have a stove in that TP tent. So it'll be nice to have, and then you can fire that right up. I have 2 power banks. So I have 2 power storage banks right there with charge cord right here. If you don't have a lot of sun, which can happen, you got some extras to fall back on if you need to be charged. Both of them are pretty big. I can usually get about 4 charges, maybe 5 out of this one on my phone. GPS takes a little bit more, but those are dang handy, and for the weight, they're worth throwing in. More wet wipes. Here's an extra game bag. Basically, I have 9, which I'll show you in a minute, but 9 bags for moose, extra large quarter bags. And I was like, you know what? There could need an extra bag, or someone could need an extra bag, and it basically weighs nothing, so I threw it in. Here's my Wyoming saw. And basically, this is handy. As you can see, it's kind of filthy from other things, but has a bone and a wood saw. So it's lightweight. I'll throw this in my backpack when I'm out hunting, in case you need to get in some alder or something like that, or we kill a moose and I can get through and saw through, skull cap it, get the ribs off, things like that. Here is a couple extra dry bags. And basically these are just big dry bags right here, 100% waterproof. I will throw these in, and then if we need them when we get up there, we have them. Oftentimes it just seems like everything gets saturated and wet, and even on the trip home, you can throw stuff in these. Let's say I had to fill something up, like fill these other totes that I shipped up there with meat, and I have to distribute some of that stuff that I shipped up there into these, I can do that. So it's always nice to have a few extra waterproof bags, especially when you're gonna be in Alaska and you're gonna be there for an extended time frame. I've never took them and said, I wished I wouldn't have. So that's what's in this bag 1. We'll get this cleaned up, throw them back in that 𝗀𝗂 bag, mark it off on my list, and then we'll jump into what's in these other 2 bags and why it's in those 2 bags. Okay, now that we got that cleared out, got everything shoved back in that bag. Didn't fit quite as good the second go around, but it's in there. That's all that matters. So basically, like I said before, this is going to be a miscellaneous bag. And really, I could get, the only thing that's in here of mine right now is there was just no good place to set this bag in there because it is so big. But this is a 100% waterproof roll top bag. I mean, water's not gonna get in here. You can roll that thing up, cinch it down, throw it in the lake, it's gonna float. It's not gonna get wet. So, seeing how we're gonna probably be using a boat for a primary mode of transportation, it has to get up there. It's a big bag because we'll probably throw most of our stuff that we're taking with us on the boat in this bag outside of like our backpacks, but we'll use this to probably basically be the boat bag. And really, the only thing I have in here, try and dig it out. It doesn't slide very good, but we're coming. That's my sleeping bag. It should be a 0 degree. I'm kind of overkill. I have a -20 Western Mountaineering bag in here, but that's all I had. It's either that or a 15 degree, and honestly, I sleep fairly cold anyways, so I felt like I'd rather have more insulation than less, and I didn't want to buy a new bag. So that's going. But it's in a waterproof roll top bag as well, just so there's no surprises there. And here's my game bags. And like I say, there is plenty of them in here. I got everything in there. There's 9 bags in there. There is 4 quarter bags. And then, let's see, there's 5 quarter bags in there. And then there's 4 of this size of these zip, basically meat bags for neck meat, rib meat, any type of miscellaneous, the tenderloins, back straps, you name it. Anything that we can get off of that moose that's just not attached to a bone is going in those bags. Oh, looks like I have one other thing in here. And this is only a portion of them. Tortillas. Again, this is a miscellaneous bag. Anything I can fit in there, I'm throwing in there. So that's what's in this bag, and that's why we have this miscellaneous bag basically, is because it has to go. I've got some extra items that won't fit in that bag. I could probably make it in my carry-on bag, but honestly, you're pushing the limits anyways when it comes to taking a backpack on as your carry-on. It's good, it's fine, but you start overloading it, they might give you some fits. So that's why I just throw it here. Anyways, we'll get this cleaned up and then I'll go through my backpack. So this can be my carry-on. And basically I put all my important stuff in there, anything I can't take, on my check bag, then I'll put it in here. So I'll just kind of run down through what I have in here. So in this top lid, I have a key to my gun case, to the locks on there, extra battery for my rangefinder, and a little jag of P cord. Nothing crazy in that top one, but it's a little pouch. Right here, I have all my licenses. So I have my locking tag with the paper that comes with it. Also have my harvest tickets, hunt license. I have the transfer forms for meat transfers. Let's see, what else do I have? I also have a state park permit in there. Anything that I need paper-wise is in this waterproof case, plus a couple lens cloths just because. Gun bearer, it's important, I forgot this. That just attaches to this right here, and then I can carry that thing hands-free. I got the other attachment up here. I have forgot this before and it sucked. Forgot it in Colorado last year. So, also, I got a little medium size, I think it's a 𝗀𝗂, but it's just a rain pack cover. I do have an insert, which I'll show you in the meantime, but I always like to have a rain cover. I know they're not totally waterproof, but it helps. Okay, that was in that top lid. Now, let's get into this. So this is on the outside pocket. I got my inReach, headlamp, extra battery for the headlamp, little breeze squeeze in there, and basically a toiletry kit. So the reason I put my toiletry kit in my carry-on is basically because if you get going to and from airports and you get stopped and you have a long layover in an airport, it's kind of nice. You can run to the bathroom, brush your teeth, freshen up a little bit, and you have that. Now, inside this toiletry kit, I also have this, which is a matches, lighter, this little deal right here, which, I don't know, goes like this. That's important to have. Now, the reason I have this in here, which I might transfer this and the matches into my check bag, but you can't have a lighter in your check bag. You have to have that on carry-on. So I'll take that in carry-on, but I might transfer these other to my check bag because honestly, I don't know if you can have matches, but I know you can't have a lighter in your check bag. Small first aid kit right here. Nothing crazy, just this is the one I'll pack around with me when I'm in the field. Not the stitch kit that you saw in my gun case. That stitch kit just has needle and thread, things like that. Has some, a little bit more extensive for some trauma wounds. But basically this has some leuko tape, quick clot, any type of like ibuprofen 800s, some NyQuil, DayQuil, just odds and ends, things like that, nothing crazy. Yeah, and then all my essentials that I need. Got some deodorant. Well, you get the picture. If all else fails, have a compass with you. Okay, in here, basically what I'm doing is I take my optics with me all the time. The reason is I don't know. Airlines are great, but man, you never know. Even if you put them in your gun case, they get thrown around, beat up. At least now I have this with me, and I have my spotting scope and my binos on the inside of this, and that way I can keep those safe. Those are expensive. If they break, you're probably in trouble. I got my little phone scope right here for my spotting scope on the inside of that. Basically, I just threw that in there because it was convenient. And then in here, this is that sleeve that I was talking about earlier. Basically, that's a full-length sleeve that goes inside this bag. And that is a waterproof bag liner that goes on the inside of this. And once I get up there, because I don't need it now, because it can kind of be a pain getting stuff in and out of there, you can't use this pocket right here. I mean, if you have this liner in there. So I don't need it in there right now, but I'm gonna take it up there because once I get hunting, if it's raining a lot, I prefer to have that because everything that goes in my bag is going to be safe and it's gonna keep the moisture out. Nalgene, I just keep clipped in right there. This will stay with me just in case I can go get a drink at the drinking fountain, fill it up, get a layover. Then at least I got that with me. In here, basically the only thing I have in this side pouch is my camera. So I'm always gonna keep that camera with me. It's nice just because when you are going through, you might wanna take a picture of the airport, things that you see in there, maybe a little higher quality than your cell phone, so that's why I keep that on my person right there. Also, it's kind of expensive, so I don't want to put that in a check bag and risk it getting damaged too. So that is what I'm taking in there. Usually I'll have a few impulse buys that I can throw in there, and I'll take like a jacket, things like that, so when I'm going through airports I can throw those in. So it's not final yet as far as what I'm taking in this, but it's pretty darn close. So I'm gonna go through a couple items I've shipped. I've just, like I say, I've got this list right here. I like to go through and check everything off and make sure everything has a check. I guess basically highlight it to make sure things are on there. But so as this is gonna be a boat hunt, we had a motor, we had an inflatable raft, and anytime I go to Alaska, I like to ship items up in advance if I can. And the reason being is because I can ship up totes, which we shipped up 7. I'm trying to think, I'll tell you what size we're. 27 by 18, the yellow totes, or black and yellow totes. Basically, so if I am successful, or if we are successful, we can take and fill those totes with all the meat that we're gonna bring back. And hopefully you're in an area that you can freeze that meat before it goes in there, or at least get it extremely cold. Hopefully leave it overnight in a freezer. But when you put that on there and ship it, we ship ours through Air Cargo Alaska, and they have freezers. Even if you ship it just as carry-on, or not carry-on, as checked baggage, you'll have to pay an overweight and extra baggage fee on it. But in most airports in Alaska, Seattle, depending on where you're going throughout, they should have freezers, and you can slap frozen stickers on there, and then they just put them in the freezer once they hit. Like if you have a long layover, they'll put those in the freezer, store them there, and then shove them back on your thing. So they're on your next flight, your connecting flight. So anyways, I like to ship all that stuff up there, but I'm just gonna kind of go through some of the stuff I did ship. So one thing we did ship up there, like I say, we shipped the motor, we shipped the raft, we had a possibles bag that had a big, three small tarps that each one of us are gonna take one of those tarps with us when we're hunting. That way when we kill a moose, if we kill a moose, we can just spread that tarp out, keep all the meat clean, bone it out. That's the general consensus of how to take care of that moose. So we're gonna adhere to that. So we shipped those up there. We also have a big tarp that we're taking up there. We wrapped our raft in. We wanted to take a big tarp just to in camp if we need it. And honestly, I don't know if you can have too many tarps. I mean, I'm sure there's some point you can, but anyways, we wrapped up the raft in a big tarp, so if we needed it, we could cover it. We could, you know, cover our meat. Once we get it back to camp, if it just inundated with rain, we have something to cover that meat with so it's not getting soaked. So we shipped that up there. I also shipped a little chair. I like to have a camp chair. It's just one of those, I think it's Equinox or Helinox chairs. Shipped that. Shipped a couple collapsible 5-gallon water jugs that we'll just fill up and leave at camp. And then that way we have water to do whatever, cook food, clean stuff off, fill your Nalgene's, things like that. So they're super lightweight, and we just threw them in there, and they're collapsible, so they're pretty awesome. I shipped my head nets up there. I was just in a box, and like I say, I am shipping totes, so it was nice to throw that in there. Shipped my P cord, which I have 100 foot of P cord. The other guys are gonna bring another 100 foot of P cord, so we're gonna have plenty of that, but I wanted to throw that in there. We shipped all of our waders and wading boots too. So basically one of those totes, all 3 sets of waders and wading boots went in that tote. And so when we get up there, we know exactly what's in there. Another thing to remember, what I tried to do on this one versus other ones is I labeled all of my totes what the contents inside was. So in the past, when I've done this, we just kind of throw stuff in there, and then you get there and then you're digging through totes and you have no idea what's in there. And if you're in a rust situation and trying to get out, that could just add time to an already rust situation. So it just creates a little bit of a chaos. So I like to take and label exactly what's in the tote on the tote. That way when you get there, everything's where it's supposed to be. Also, the transporter had a good point. He said when you ship it up, just label the boxes with food in it. And that way the ones with food in it, he can put those inside his hanger. And that way he doesn't have any problems with bears getting into them outside, things like that. So we labeled all those with food. Any ones with food in it, we just labeled that so we knew to throw them in the inside. So another thing we shipped up there, so all the stuff that we need to take care of that animal to ship it back went in on this. Like I say, the garbage bags, the totes. We put in some cardboard pieces. I just flattened out some cardboard, put some cardboard pieces in the bottom that's lightweight, put some foam noodles in there, like that insulation, foam insulation for pipe. Cut those up in sections and threw those in there, shipped that up. The plastic wrap in the big handles that you can just take and wrap it around. That's super handy just to wrap those horns up and wrap anything together when you go to ship it and put it on a crate at the shipping company. So we ship all that stuff up in there in one of those totes, so we have all that when we need it for the trip home. Throw in a couple Sharpies just so you can label stuff when you're coming back so you know what's going on. Also throw in some zip ties. Zip ties come in pretty handy, and I just keep a package of those zip ties inside that same tote, and then you can zip tie the totes as well for shipping. We shipped the kicker can that we're gonna use for fuel in the motor on the boat. We bought a brand new can, and that's to avoid any type of hazardous material. So when you're shipping, a lot of times it becomes a little problematic on items that have fuel in them. So I recommend just buying a new kicker can. They're not super expensive, and then you don't have to worry about when you go to your shipping company that now you have to pay an extra rate because it's hazardous material, or even if you drained it, there's still fumes in there. So anyways, that's just kind of a tip. Just buy a new kicker can, throw it in, new hose. We also packed an extra hose. That way, if anything happens to the motor or the hose when we're out there, we can do that. So we'll get the fuel bladders, like the extra tanks, when we get up there for just extra jugs of fuel that will be flying out with us. In that big bag, we shipped up a big 𝗀𝗂 bag, big 9,000, and that has the oars in it. We got 2 extra pumps. We also have a patch repair kit, a small engine repair kit, spark plugs, pull cord, stuff like that you might break that you're gonna need definitely. And when you're out in the middle of the bush, you don't have anything. So anything you think might break and isn't gonna be super problematic, throw it in, get it out there, and that way if something does happen, you got a way to fix it. And basically that's pretty much all I ship outside of all my food. So because food is heavy and we're packing basically for 14 days, we could be in there a couple extra days, but we figured 14 is a good ballpark. So if we're in there longer than that, I think we'll make it. I think we'll be fine. But I broke all of my food out into daily rations, Ziploc bags. That's what I like to do. I'll have a list on here of what I had in there and how many calories. Typically, I mean, I'm not a big guy, so I don't take a ton of calories. I like to keep it somewhere in that 3,000 range. Little more, a little less. It's not gonna kill me. I'll be fine, but I don't eat a ton. I'm not a 3,500 calorie guy. That's just too much food for me, especially when I'm out there hunting. So I like to keep it into that. We also shipped up like some spices, things like that, that we're gonna have, like Montreal steak, garlic powder, just things like that that we can, for fish, for meat, anything like that. We also shipped up a couple pots and pans to cook in, a single burner stove, just a little propane stove. And of course, like I have my daily food bags that I throw in, but then I keep all my dinners and breakfast in a separate bag. So all my peaks, my peak refuel, my freeze-dried meals that I throw in, I basically throw those, all my dinners in one and all my breakfasts in one. Because most of the time I'm going to be eating those at camp. Now, if I think I'm gonna have a long day or I'm gonna spike out, I'll grab one of those and throw them in. But most of the time I just need my daily food bag. So I keep that separate from the other. That way I can just pull one out, eat it, things like that. And then some of the things that I'm going to be taking up, like those tortillas that are food items or perishables. So I like to have a nice, I just like to have a piece of cheese, some salami, bagels, things like that that's gonna be perishable. I buy those up there if there's a store in town, or if I don't think there's gonna be a general store, then I'll just grab those, throw them in my carry-on, have it in my carry-on bag, and then I'll just take that up. There's not a lot, but honestly, it's those just little things when you're out there hiking around, being out there all day. It's nice to have some real food that you can take in. So stuff like that, I'll just grab and take up there with me. But outside of that, I think that just about covers everything that we've shipped up there, everything that I'm taking. So, like I said, we're gonna have a whole list, everything on there that I took, better breakdown of all the individual foods, layering for clothes, things like that. I'll have all that on a list so you can see what I'm actually taking on this. And then when I get back, we're gonna have another breakdown and go through this list again. And I'll start maybe crossing stuff out, adding stuff that I wish I would have had that I didn't have. So we'll give you a better idea of what came in handy there, what I used every day, things like that, and we'll figure out how everything goes. Okay, so I'm gonna do a wrap up on my moose hunt. Just got back, and I do this every time I get back from a hunt. I like to go through my gear and decide what I definitely needed, what I should have took more of, what I shouldn't have took, things like that. And so I just have a list here of what I took, and I'll just kind of go over a few things of that. Not everything, but just kind of so everyone can have an idea of what went well, what didn't, and what was great. So kind of running over my clothes. If you can get another pair of, or another top for rain gear, because it was so wet on that moose hunt, and this might, not be all the time, but because it was so wet, it would have been nice to have a top to switch out. Not necessary, but it could have been convenient. They're pretty lightweight, and honestly, it would have made the next day a little bit more bearable if you'd woke up and not threw on a wet raincoat and jump out there. Definitely the 10 pairs of socks came in handy. I used 9 of those and wore the 10th one out. I mean, it was so wet that even through the waders, it would still, between sweat and just overall moisture coming through and going down into those waders, you would get done with the day and your socks would be soaking wet. And we would hang them up, and it would usually take a couple days sitting in your tent to get to where it wasn't wet. I mean, they weren't wringing wet, but boy, they were soaking. So definitely take those 10 pairs of socks. That was great. One thing I would say is all the bottoms, it looked like I took a lot of bottoms. I felt like I could have used another bottom that was a midweight instead of a lightweight. The mid-weight bottoms, I would go through those because it very rarely got above 50 degrees, which is typically pretty warm for a moose hunt. But most of the time it would get fairly cold and you're wet, like I said before, even with waders on, which we lived in those waders and wading boots. We very rarely used our hiking boots and pants. But it would have been nice to have an extra little mid layer. So I would have done that. The one thing I did run into, which kind of sucked, but I had tested my inReach the week before, and then I got up there. For whatever reason, it was not synced. It came off. So I did not have that thing synced again. What I should have done is test it while I was in Dillingham at the motel and had service. But for whatever reason, that thing did not sync up. And once I got out in the field, I couldn't resync it. I tried to, but it wouldn't pull up because I couldn't add a new device unless I had service. So that kind of sucked. I got through it and just the old T9 texting, but it's kind of made for crappy texting at night. So anyways, that's one thing that I would do for sure. Maybe a little bit like right before instead of a week before. For whatever reason, that Garmin app kind of crapped out on me. But mosquito repellent, must. They were terrible on that one. Head nets, take 2 in case one gets, like it'll get wet and then you put it back in the bag at night and it kind of gets dingy after a while. Or if you need a backup, honestly, saved our life. Those bugs were horrendous on there. Those little white socks were just thick. In fact, I'll get to that in a minute. But one thing I would take some afterbite lotion, like some calamine lotion or something like that, maybe even antihistamine. I generally don't have bad reactions to bug bites, but I got so severely bitten on my hands when I was skinning that moose that they were on fire for about 3 days, and I was even having trouble sleeping at night because they were burning so bad, and I want to peel the skin off of them. So I would take some antihistamine and some calamine lotion definitely with me if I went back, just in case you did get bitten like that, you had something to remedy it. And to go along with that, take some rubber gloves. I don't generally skin game with rubber gloves. I know most people do, but if you don't, I would take it in that situation. The reason is because once that moose blood got on her hands, those little white sox flies just attacked. I had 30-something bites on one hand and 20-something on the other. And it was just because that blood got on it and they were exposed. So that's what got it bad. So I would take some rubber gloves for sure. The bone saw / wood saw, I took that Wyoming one. It worked great. We used it a ton. We were able to, we used it to cut away through some of them alders. We also used it to break down the moose. What I realized though is had one of those blades broke or we had an issue, we might have been in a little bit of trouble. So I would take extra blades for sure next time just to have that. I only had one blade for each, which they worked, they never broke. I just know how things go. The other thing I would say is game bags. I had 8. I took an extra, just kind of thinking about it. I packed some of my items in there, and I took 2 extra, and they were just the zip, boned out meat bags from 𝗀𝗄. I would take 12, and the reason I would take 12, we ended up killing this moose a long ways away from the place we had to get it to out on the beach. And because of that, and because I'm kind of a little guy, I'm not tough enough to carry a whole moose quarter out 2 miles, 2.5 miles. So what we did is we cut those in half. We still had to leave the bone in it, but we cut them in half, and basically we had, I think 11 or 12 bags of meat that were anywhere from 60 to 80 pounds. It was a ton of meat. So instead of 8, I would take probably 12, and you have a lot of those. I would take the XL zip bags, or just the boned out meat bags, and then take 8 quarter bags. I don't think I would take the moose size bags because honestly, if you're gonna cut those quarters in half, you don't need the moose size bags. If you're a tough enough guy and can man up, throw that thing on your back, or you're not gonna pack it as far, yeah, take the big moose quarter bags. But all I know is them suckers are too heavy for me. So I would take more game bags. Let's see. Talk about the waders and the wading boots, honestly, those are a must in my opinion. Where those moose live, super damp, real marshy conditions. If you're gonna have, we had a raft and a boat, so obviously getting in and out of that made sense having those. But just walking around in those bogs, through the tussocks, crossing streams constantly, and by the time you get done walking through those nasty alders, everything's wet anyways. So good quality pair of waders and wading boots, they'll save you. Honestly, like those were a lifesaver. We had a little problem with the motor, not anything we couldn't get to kind of run, but it definitely hampered once we had a little, just some stupid little attachment that ran from the kicker can up to the fuel line where it attached to the motor. That valve started leaking and we didn't have an extra valve. And it's just a small little part that just hooks that up and then allows that to feed that fuel in there. But just that little simple thing caused us to where we were just basically in an idle at a lake that was 13 miles long or 12 miles long and 2.5 miles wide. So you imagine trying to idle across something where there's any type of wind at all, you're not gonna go very fast. So that's something that I would definitely look at next time. But again, that's where we were at, and I don't think that's gonna happen all the time. Really everything else, like I say, went off pretty good. Those are some of my take-homes. Overall, you learn something from every single hunt. These are a few things that I learned that I would do different next year. So if you're referencing off of that gear list that I had, again, I think I was pretty thorough with it, but those are some of the take-homes that I took away from that moose hunt and I might change on my next moose hunt when I go out. But so if you are looking for this this gear list, we'll have a copy of this below, and you can jump on there and you can see that gear list. And yeah, I mean, hopefully you found this this video informational and helpful. And if you liked it, subscribe, and yeah, we'll see you next time.